Right, good evening. Welcome to the live. We're going to talk this evening about the spin video that went up on my channel last night. Oh, I'm going to need to mute this. Yep. Because we definitely need to just make sure. There's a few people getting a bit confused with the ideas of it, so we're going to talk about the ideas and also try and clarify some of the ideas around how to higher and lower spin, which people are asking for, which actually wasn't the point of the video, but we're touching it, and I'm going to do a bigger video on it as well with Dan. But I don't think you can do this kind of subject too much because it's an important point. Should be a fun one. Chat is going. Stephen Blatchford, hi from Yorkshire. Hi Mark. John Zar, evening brah, evening, just sleeping 61. Let's get into this live. It should be a fun one. Right, so let's start with the ideas of last night's spin video. So if any of you haven't watched it, you might want to pause this video or come back and watch it on the replay. And if you watch it on the replay, maybe pause it and go and watch it. It's called More Spin Please Vicar, I think, which is why the title of this video is out there. It's basically a video where me and Dan Hendrickson tried to hit a club a certain distance. Then we tried to hit that club the same distance and add spin, but keep it landing the same distance. And then we tried to hit it the same distance and take spin off. Now, the outcome of that is basically we weren't able to add spin and keep it landing the same distance. It always came shorter. We were able to take spin off really easily and get it landing around the same distance. It would have been coming in at different heights, and it might have stopped differently because of land angles and what have you, which some people were getting a bit confused with as well. But we were able to take spin off really easily. And one of the kind of reoccurring comments, in amongst all the really good ones as well, was people were saying, how are you taking spin off and putting it back on again? Why don't you show us how to take spin off and put it back on again? It would have made this video kind of more kind of educational almost for them. Well, we'll do a lengthy video on that now, and we'll talk about it a bit tonight as well. But it wasn't really the point of the video. The point of the video was to show you that basically it's very easy to take spin off and hit target, nearly impossible to add and still hit the same distance. So why would you ever buy clubs that are taking spin off or use a ball that's taking spin off? It makes no sense when you're able to do that yourself. And really hard for you to add spin. So why wouldn't you just max the spin and just take it off if you ever needed to? Or the bigger point is there are plenty of situations on the golf course where spin will be taken away from you. There's hardly any where it's added. So you're playing constantly where spin is being taken off. So why would you not just max spin out is kind of the point of the video. But spin, look, think about spin this way. So spin's calculated on a few points, but you want to think about understanding spin loft to start you off. So spin loft is the dynamic loft as you strike the ball. So where you strike the ball, where the loft is pointing, so how much degrees of loft. Then also you've got the angle of attack. So the difference between angle of attack and dynamic loft is going to give you a spin loft number. You've then also got, if we take all strikes as being even, so no CG kind of movements of strike, let's just take every strike as a geometric centre, so lined up with the centre of gravity strike, because that can affect spin as well, but that's a different point. You've also got speed in there as well. So like speed, dynamic loft, angle of attack, they're your three key ingredients for spin. So the bigger gap you get between the angle of attack, which is the Apple Pencil here, and the real pencil here is dynamic loft. The bigger gap you get between these two, the more the spin will increase. Let's just take speed out of it for now. The more you add speed, the more spin will increase. And the more you take speed off, the more it will decrease as well. But let's just keep speed as a constant. So the bigger you make this gap, the more spin you will get. So when we were trying to add more spin, we were hitting down more by adding more loft. We're also doing another thing, because this measurement, this spin loft measurement, is three-dimensional. So the more I get the path and the face separate into angle of attack and path, Apple Pencil, real pencil, dynamic loft, and face the path, the more I get them separating, the bigger the gap between the two becomes. So not only this way is obviously one gap, but it's increasing on this angle because they're not over the top of each other. So what we were doing to increase spin is we were hitting down, adding loft, having a face open to a path. So obviously we're getting higher shots, more spin, putting loads of speed in there to then try and make the distance, but weren't able to do it. Take spin off. We were making the dynamic loft less, so maybe handle forwards. We were not hitting down as much, so you're bringing the dynamic loft and the angle of attack much more together. This spin loft number is decreasing, so spin is decreasing, and we were able then to make the distance but drop that spin comfortably off. So what the idea of the video was really trying to show you was not that, and we'll do more on that, but it's important that you understand spin loft if you want to control spin. What the point of the video really is trying to say is that in situations out on the golf course, and we can name a lot of them, you are going to have spin removed, stolen from you. It's going to be taken away from you. So choosing a ball or clubs that reduce your original spin settings can be dangerous. So think about it in a few ways. People, whenever I talk about spin, people think about a ball landing on a green and zipping back like you see on the telly, so landing, spinning back. That's not what we're talking about when it comes to spin for the video that I'm referencing. We're talking about trying to hit a distance through the air, a carry distance. So try and carry it over a bunker, carry it over a hedge, hit the ball a landing distance. When you take spin off a shot or add spin, as you could see when we did the video, we were getting very different distances. So if I'm going to reduce spin, I did a few models this morning, ball models to myself, just to try and clear this through, but it's quite hard to explain. But if I'm dropping, say, 1,000 revs off a shot, if everything else is equal, dynamic loft, angle of attack, strike, everything else is equal, depending on the club head speed, if you get up near driver range and you start dropping up 1,000 revs, it can be 10 yards longer or further, depending if you're going for the higher spin or the lower spin option. Because the spin model changes, it's going to change the way that ball flies and climbs and not through the air. So what happens when you get low spin situations, so on the golf course, the things that we're trying to warn you to defend against. So again, the point of the video, you can reduce spin, but you can't add. Well, when you get into semi-rough, and you're going to go with a low spin ball, low spin iron, what happens now is your distance control becomes a little bit challenging, because you're starting, say, let's say a 5-iron spinning at 3,000 revs, so low spin for a 5-iron, and then you go and put it in semi-rough with a bit of dew, and that's spinning down at 1 something or 2. That ball is either just going to fall out the air, or you're going to get a knuckleball, subject to where you might strike it on the face and the other variable factors. So what happens is controlling that distance, not it landing and stopping, but controlling how far you even throw it through the air, becomes mentally challenging, which is why you see people like Dan Hendrickson using chunkier clubs, hitting shots in videos which go, in his mind, good. He hits it through the air, he feels like it's good, it landing on the back of the green. That's something, if you watch the Burnham and Burrow video, happened on 2 occasions, compared to him going to a more bladed version in the MBs, in the tightly signs that he's using, where the spin model is a little bit more constant in the higher, so he can control it in more and more situations. Let's see what the comments are saying. I wonder if any of that is making any sense to anybody. I'd never want a ball to fall out of the sky. Certain irons will do that. Certain irons will do that. Jonathan, absolutely. 7-iron, 150 yards keeps me out of a lot of trouble. Oh, thank you. Here we go. Was about to ask about rough. If you get a flyer out the rough, so how can you control that more in terms of spin numbers? Luke H Golf. Now, you can't control that out of the rough. It's the beauty of the game. It's one of those variables, Luke. But what happens when you get people at the end of their clubs where they can't they're like your 5-iron, so you've got no other option. Let's say you end at a 5-iron, then you go to like a hybrid, which is you just can't hit out of that live, for argument's sake. If that 5-iron is starting at a really low spin, like power bats can, and then you get in those low spin options, oh, you're going to start finding maybe gaps between 6s and 5s if you're not careful there. And certainly you're going to get 5-irons that go further than your hybrid as well, or as far if you're not careful. So you're going to struggle. You're going to have to start hitting that 5-iron like really soft. The biggest thing out of rough that you're trying to do is drop it in the right place. You're trying to land it an exact distance to control some of the run out that you might get. And again, there's the point of controlling spin with equipment, is if you're starting at a low spin base, you're going to be asking bigger questions when you get in those extreme situations in terms of spin. So are you saying that more bladed irons are more controllable than game improvers? Jimbo SRP. Well, again, this is where you need to go and test, Jimbo. My tests, certainly I'm going to do more. I'm going to try and do some more videos on this as well with some neutral testers to try and show you the difference. I'm struggling to see drop-offs when I measure between bladed irons and some game improvements. I do see difference in peak heights. So peak heights is going to contribute to stop power. Another one where people get confused, that you mentioned the word spin and they're just thinking of stop power only. Good players aren't thinking that way. Good players are predominantly thinking about how far the ball is going to go through the air, and then they're going to work bounce in second. And if they can't control that because spin is jumping around, that's something that really scares good players, where amateurs seem to want to run at the moment to these like low spinning power bats because they're marketed at you as game improvement, where we'll do some more videos. I'm not saying they're not, and I think they can help a lot of people, but I also think lots of people are getting lost by having equipment that might just be making it more challenging for them. So Ryan says, I struggle with knuckleballs with mid-irons, use TaylorMade RACMBs, me or my sticks. Well, TaylorMade racks, aren't they the more bladed one, Ryans? That's going to be more you than the clubs. I mean, they're decent, good clubs. I wouldn't see anything particularly problem with that. High handicappers should try Titleist CBs. Earl, yep, absolutely. And then you've got Ping do their iBlade. TaylorMade have got great sets of P irons at the minute in their bladed and semi, which are the best I think they've made for ages. Callaway have their pro versions and their MBs as well. Every manufacturer makes it. Obviously, I use Titleist, and they go and test them. Mizuno make great irons also. Best things you go and test to find which ones you like the look of, those kind of things. The extra roll works for some courses and not for others. We might need more than 14 clubs of choice in our bag. Ken Royal. Hi Ken, thanks for your comments as always. I appreciate them. You do add some good bits to lots of the threads. Something to think about with wedge control. Well, the wedge control thing is really interesting. Evening, Mark, Liam, Shell, loving the latest vids. Thanks, Liam. What if you listen to any wedge kind of design ideas and concepts, what they're always trying to do is maximize the spin they give you in situations. So if I test wedges from a mat, most companies, you can't see a difference in spin. The spin's just kind of maxing out its grooves and faces. Everyone's doing what they need to do to get their club spinning. It's then when you get into things like semi-rough and rough where you really need to make sure that your wedges are doing the most, because again you're losing control because the spin's dropping off. That spin's dropping off, you're going to carry the ball different distances. So it's very evident in wedge fitting as much as it is in iron fitting as well. I think it's interesting how this model... the biggest thing that I could try and get through to as many golfers as possible is when you think of the word spin, try and stop thinking that purely equates to land and stop and spin back, the sexy bit that lots of people get lost in. You want to think about, if I hit a shot that's going 150 yards, which has 6,000 revs of spin with X club, and then everything being equal, I go and hit the same shot and that spin drops down 1,000 revs, that ball might fly further through the air, subject to making sure I'm getting the right launches. That's no good to me. I can't have a ball jumping in spin. I need the spin to stay constant, so then I can put constant speeds in, deliver constant dynamic lofts and angle of attacks to keep the spin loft constants, as constant as possible, to make sure the ball is landing always around that 150 marker. That's before you take in any kind of gear effects and those kind of ideas that can move spin around different hits on the face. Do golf balls really do what they say on the box? Well, I always think when you read the boxes of golf balls, Earl, which is another important point when it comes to spin, because equipment, and in the video we mentioned golf balls and golf clubs, some golf ball boxes, they literally say the same thing on all of them. I don't remember which one it is. For me, again, I just don't see why. It's only cost that stops you using the spinniest ball you can get your hands on, again. Because with the driver, you don't see the effects. It's kind of like 9-iron downwards that you start seeing the different effects in spins from different balls. And then you're working feel on top of this as well, but let's just take that as a given. Why would you ever use a ball that drops spin off? For me, unless you are just like, there's a few world-class players that maybe want to do that. But your average Joe, and this is what always makes me laugh with certain companies saying our players using this ball and it's a low spinning ball, and you just think, well, that's just not relating to anyone I'm teaching. I could show you number after number of thousands of people going through my GC Quad amateurs who are absolutely not spinning their irons enough. Not too much, which is the misconception. Driver, yes, they struggle to control spin, but the ball's not going to do that, because with the driver, even the low spins to the high spinning balls basically spin within 100 revs of each other. It's an 9-iron downwards that you start seeing that fluctuation in the equipment when it comes to balls, which is why companies like Titleist want you to work from the green outwards, because that's where you're going to see the effects of their ball more than anything else. Saying that in contradiction, they have just released the AVX ball, which is slightly confuses me, but it's there for anyone who wants that lower spinning option. I guess you've got to cover all bases. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I would be trying to pack spin up with your irons as much as possible, because the course is only going to take it away 9 times out of 10. Dewy grass, semi-rough, set up even on a good fairway, but just set up a little bit, slightly high on the face strikes. Obviously long grass, those kind of ideas. It's constantly going to try and steal spin from you, so I would keep trying to keep it on there. Okay, what people said, the last premium TaylorMade ball, the TP5, was a nightmare. Knuckleballs galore. Mark Bowley. Yeah, I found that with that ball as well, which is again why the new Titleist one confuses me a bit. Club member times 1,500 revs is a good start. How were the guys altering spins from the original Spin Vicar video for the days changing speed? Justin, well, if you don't watch the start of the video, Justin, we were manipulating the spin loft that I was talking at the start. So we were applying different angle of attacks, different lofts. So the more loft, more angle of attack, the more we separated loft angle of attack, and three-dimensionally, so open face the paths as well. The bigger this gap got, the higher the spin got, and then we brought it together to take the spin off. So less down at it, less loft, handle forwards kind of deliveries, trying to take loft off while not hitting massively down. That brings the spin loft number together, that takes spin off, is how we were manipulating. I will do a video with this with Dan, a lot more, to try and show you the techniques. It's not something you really need to, I mean, it is something you could have a think about practicing. Actually, it's quite a good thing that you could have a think about practicing. But hey, Rory's in there. Rory, yeah, see you tomorrow. We've got a day with Rory tomorrow, can't wait. Videos coming as well. You should like it. We'll do some videos on his swing and what have you. Shot Ray, Nate Gate. It's more, again, the point of that video, lots of people want to know how we took spin and added it. The point of that video was to show you really that the course takes spin off. You want to punch spin up with as much equipment help as possible. Which I always think is interesting as well when you get the videos how to spin your irons more, how to spin this more, how to add more spin. It's just, they're just such clickbaity ideas that people just latch onto, but they don't actually help golfers really much at all. I think is quite interesting. When practicing chipping around the green, trying different ball positions, speeds and strike, I can get different results. Spin, quick, or run out to the hole. Which is better method to practice? Paul, Keith, all of them, Paul. Practice all of those methods. You will need all of those shots in your golfing life. You'll need to be able to get it up and stop. You need to be able to run it out. You need to be able to run it up banks, into the winds, downwinds. You need to do everything. Can we see Ray's spin rate? Yeah, Alex, we've done videos on Ray's spin rate, and he struggles to control it. We did it with the driver in Greece, I think it was, but we might do another one at some point where I was fluctuating my driver spin maybe by 400 revs. He was fluctuating by 2,000 through strike. Dave Lawley, evening Mark, sorry I'm late. No problem, Dave, we are going soon, but you could watch on catch up. What about shafts? Andrew Pinder. Yeah, good post. If you can get a shaft affecting spin by anything more than 200 revs, and then you're consistent enough to quantify that, post the video, let's see it. Do forged irons, new and old, create different spins and mounts? Rick Zadar, do forged irons, new and old, create different spins and mounts? Yeah, well, I mean, in theory, grooves will and faces will wear out, but again, when you haven't got a face with lots of loft where you're going to get a gripping and slipping action as you hit the ball, compared to 7-iron, 6-irons, where it's much more of there's less slip. It's a rebounding hit more. So if you go to the driver, it's almost completely, not completely, but almost completely rebounding. The grooves going and all that kind of stuff won't make such a big difference again until you get into those long grasses. Again, you want to max spin out, clean grooves, clean faces, as modern clubs as you can afford or can be bothered with. But again, it's going to be marginal differences. Was the video of the driver spin was 2K difference title? I can't remember, Steve. I can't remember. I've done so many. How to generate spin with low club head speed, especially when landing on fast greens during the summer? Alan Maid. Well, speed is a massive ingredient when it comes to spin, and it's also going to be ingredient to height. So maybe if you've got really low club head speeds, which is why you haven't got the low club head speed like you're saying, that's possibly where the game improvement irons might be able to help you push the ball up in the air, use land angle more. But then I've done tests with students with not massive club head speeds, and I will do more on this, who, if you give them a 6-iron in a power bat, obviously the loft is strengthened, so even though it pushes it up, so the peak heights are the same, the launches are lower sometimes. So you can actually give them a 7-iron and they start getting the same distances because they can get better launch even at peaks the same way. So yeah, that's still very, very debatable from player to player, and I will get some tests to really show you this as much as possible. How does the wind affect higher spinning irons and lower spinning irons? Well, the test I've seen on wind, and I need to do more research on it really, but the test I've seen on wind is they want you just to hit your shots as normal really. But I mean, I'll play with launch angles with wind, and this is again where dropping the spin off would be a skill that you could use, which we'll do when we do the video more. The kind of the shots we were hitting in the video where we were taking spin off remind me very much of shots I'm hitting into the wind. So I'm trying to hit the ball with less speed, different lofts, different angle of attacks to get the desired launches and peak heights, to make sure it carries the distance, like an exact distance, so the wind isn't killing it. Thanks for answering, Mark. Alan, no problem. What does UA bra mean from USA? Rick, UA, Under Armour, bra, you know, like brother, bra. That's what that means. Should we end on that? There we go. That's just a little reaction video to last night's spin one, where lots of people were getting confused by thinking the video was about a lesson on how to add and take spin off, which it wasn't. We'll do another video to try and help out on that going forwards. It was more a video to try and illustrate to you that spin is going to be stolen from you on the golf course in many occasions. It's never, hardly ever given back to you. So using equipment and clubs and balls that steal spin from you, possibly, I'm not saying it is, but possibly might be harming your game rather than helping it. Post comments. Let's hear what you got to say. down below. As always, thanks for watching. Hitting the thumbs up button if you love in the lives. I love doing the lives. I love trying to interact with the audience and answer your questions. I love these reactions to videos actually, because it allows me just to kind of reiterate a point if I haven't put it across in a way that obviously everyone is getting. It's just a great way of reacting to some of the work that's been put out there. Let me know what you think. Post comments down below. As always, hit the thumbs up button, and we'll see you tomorrow. I'm spending a day with Ray. That will always be fun. It's always fun when you spend a day with Ray. Thanks for watching.